Okay, just to recap the recipe, what I'm doing today. It's going to be a wet hopped ale, wet hopped American Pale Ale. It's all grain. I watched a couple of videos and saw what people were doing with their wet hopped ales, wet hopped beers, and I found one example out there that was interesting, which was basically pretty much a very big focus on just the pale ale malt, but then mashing at a higher temperature. So my mash schedule today is very straightforward. Protein rest, I'm not even going to bother to do that. That's just in my mashing profile. Sometimes I decide to do it, sometimes I don't, so I just leave it in there. But I'm going to do a 75-minute rest at 158 degrees Fahrenheit, which is a little bit of a higher temperature than I usually mash at. But I saw a recommendation to do that, to just focus on the malt flavors of the pale malt, to try to let the wet hops shine through. So that's my plan, is to mash at 158, mash out at 168, and then we'll go on to the brew. Yeah, and my grain bill, or the grist, I'm using a Valley Malt Pale Ale malt, 9 pounds of that, 8 ounces of carapils, 8 ounces of flaked oats, or really instant oatmeal, 8 ounces of an acidulated honey malt. Well, actually, I had 7.8 ounces is all I had left, so I'm going to use that up. And then I'm going to add 8 ounces of cane sugar to boost the alcohol a little bit and give it a little bit of a drier finish to go along with my higher mash schedule. And then my hop schedule, I'm going to bitter with an ounce of CTZ hops, or Columbus, Tomahawk Zeus, however you want to say it, which I have here. Right, here is vacuum packed, ready to go from a bulk pound by a while ago. And then I have a pound of Cascade, wet Cascade, and wet Nugget at flame out. I really need to, all I did yesterday, I cut down my binds and I have them in some big boxes, and I'm going to start picking the cones to see how much I have left. I'm pretty sure I have over 2 pounds of wet hops, so the plan is to put as much of that wet hops into the boil as I can, or I should say the flame out. I'm going to do a pound at flame out of each, and then probably going to drop the temperature to 170, 160, that range, and hold it, and then add another pound to kind of use it all up and not dry it, because I do already have 10 ounces of Cascade dried, and I probably have another bind and nugget out there that half of it died, but I still probably dried, have a few ounces of that. So, and I'm pretty sure what I'm going to be, when I get all my cones picked today, I'm going to have over 2 pounds. So I'll be drying that as well. So I have quite a bit of hops, whole cone hops, that I'm going to dry and vacuum seal. But that's it. So yeah, I was going to videotape outside because I have my brew in a bag system out there heating the strike water right now. It's all set up. I've already added my brewing salts, which to go with my water is 6 grams calcium chloride, 5.3 ounces of Epsom salt, a gram of gypsum, and a half of a Campton tablet in there. All done, all set up. The water is heating up, but my neighbor sold their shed, and there is a truck out there that is making a lot of background noise. So unfortunately, hopefully they're done before I start making more videos, but I'm going to grab my hops, bring them out to my deck, start picking them off the binds, and see what I got. And then it should be soon to doing in. All right, so hopefully the background noise is not too bad, but yeah, here is the some of my Cascade hops that I picked yesterday, where I cut the binds down yesterday and cut off the main piece of the bind and just kept the stalks, or the side branches, I guess, whatever you call them, and put them in the box yesterday afternoon for picking today. And I've started. It's going to take a long time to get all these hops picked, but you know, you can see some of the cones are pretty nice. But yeah, this is the Cascade, and the Nugget will be next. And You can't see it through the trees, but the truck is over there. Oh, that's annoying. All right. So I am, yeah, just checking in again here. Just showing on the recipe, I originally had 8.5 gallons. I scratched it off because my mash calculation said I only needed 8, a little bit over 8 gallons of water. So now that I'm at strike temperature, luckily I remembered, and I have another half gallon of water to add in here, or thereabouts. Reason being, wet hopped, a lot of vegetable matter going into the boil or the flame out. So the expectation is, my expectation, and from what I've been reading, is that some of that wort is going to get soaked up by the wet hops themselves. So I wanted to make sure we have plenty of volume, or plenty of. I want to try to get 5.5 gallons, which is typical for what I do into the fermenter, so I can get a good full keg. So I'd originally thought about that, and this morning when I printed everything out to get ready, I forgot why I did that, but that's why I did it. So I'm going to add that half gallon here now. I'm right at strike temperature, 160. It's overshooting a little bit as it's trying to stabilize. But I'm going to add that water into my my kettle here, and we should be pretty much ready to dough in shortly. Okay, my 75-minute mash is complete. I shut everything down right before I started my mash out, just to check a few things. First, I like this new bag I got from the Brew bag, but it's definitely affecting my recirculation rate because it's much finer than my other bag that I was using, which I kind of expected. So I think because of that, my PID was having issues, and my mash temps were actually, for whatever reason, it was keeping around 161 to, whatever I did, to 162.5, which was kind of fine, I was hoping to keep a mash temp around 160, so a couple degrees over is not really that bad. I did have my PID set to 158, and that's why I chose that, but that was even over a little higher than I wanted, so I did put it down to 156, and I still ended up with the end of the mash, the temp inside, when I checked, it was 161 degrees, which is a little high, but no big deal. Again, mashing high, which is part of the reason why I'm adding some sugar back to kind of dry it out a little bit, even with a higher mash temp than I usually do. So I think I would chalk that up to two things, I guess, really, is the PID. I don't know if I would need to look at the settings into more depth. I did set auto tune at 158 right at the beginning of the mash, and it, for whatever reason, auto tuned to be higher. But I think really what it boils down to is just my recirculation rate was off again. So I mean, I watch the level of the water here, and I try to make sure I don't have much of a vacuum going on. So I basically set the ball valve based on that. As you can see, this is where it was set, so it was barely open. I think I want to get some sort of flow meter so I can get a sense of what my rates really are and see where the rate needs to be for really setting the temperature of the mash to be exactly what my PID says it is. So that was about it, but pre-boil gravity was 1037. I'm not sure where that puts me because I did add an extra half gallon of water to my mash because of anticipated soaking up of some water when I finally add my hops. And I'm going to mash out here. I'll set everything up. I'll set the temperature to 1068 to mash out. So in the temperature based on 168, I'm going to get a mash out temp of between 168 and probably 172, and I'll let that go. And then I'm going to sit for a while because, as you can see, I've been picking hops. These are just my Cascade hops for quite a while. Still have a ways to go. I'm probably 80% done with what I had started with. And when I start to get in a boil, it's going to take no time for this to be brought up to boil with my element in here. So I want to make sure I'm not shortchanging myself on time to make sure everything is all set and getting the hops ready to go in. So I'm going to mash out. And from there, once the mash out is complete, I'm just going to let it sit for a little bit. until I probably get a good bit of my nugget hops off the binds, and then I might start to bring everything to a boil. So that's about it. All right, checking in again. Finally picked all my hops in the bucket, 2.2 ounces, which is awesome, which means 17 at flame out, 17 in the whirlpool. Gallons line, it's probably hard to see, it's right about here, so it's 3.5 gallons according to my old fermenter bucket, volume wise. You can see what's in here. That was off one bind, so I guess 2.2, what's that, 34 ounces. Yeah, this is a little less than what I had in the off my other bind that I dried and got 10 ounces dried, or a little under 10. But that's looking pretty good. So let's see what we'll get off the nugget. So I'm going to toss this, get the other box out here, and start picking the nugget. And let's see, I have my bag in here dripping for a while. The plan is to discard the bag, get rid of this, keep the basket in there when I go to boil, and I'm going to use my old Brew bag over the basket to keep my hops together in the boil, during the boil, for when I add them. So I'm probably going to have the basket in there pretty much, or I'm not sure when I'm going to put the basket back in and actually the bag itself, but it's going to be before 15 minutes because my immersion chiller is going to be in there at the same time as well. So this is going to be an interesting experiment. By the looks of it, I'm going to have about 7 gallons of hops. Obviously that's not going to increase my wort volume by 7 gallons, but it's a lot of material that's going to be in the boil or post boil. So let's see how the whole thing goes. All right. Okay, check-in time. It's been a little frantic. What do we got here? It's 1:30 left in the boil. Volume, I have no idea. It's showing close to 6, but I do have a basket, the chiller in there, a bunch of stuff, and I do have my other bag. It kind of looks a little calm in the middle, but there's a pretty heavy boil going around the sides. You can kind of see in the middle of my chiller and everything else getting in the way, so I know the boil is going pretty well. Hops wise, this is a bunch of nugget hops that I picked. Still some to go. I'd say there's probably about 2 pounds there, pound and a half at least. And I have measured out, this is 2.2, 2 pounds, 2 ounces of Cascade on the bottom and nugget on the top. And I'm going to try to put this in here once the boil finishes, which I'm at 30 seconds. So yeah, I'm going to try to get it all in, see how it looks, and then turn on the chiller. I have no idea whether how this is going to work out, if I'm going to get enough volume to get more than just those wet hops in there, but we'll see. Check back in a bit. All right, I have my chiller going. This is going to be a quick update because I'm going to have to run and turn off my hose right away. Chiller's going. Looks like everything is really getting down to temperature pretty quick. I do have my element back on, so my chiller and my element is going to start fighting here in a few minutes. But that's it. Yeah, I can see hop-wise, it is soaking up everything, so I'm probably going to leave the recirc on and just dump the other 17 ounces of Cascade and no more nugget, and then we'll see how it goes. All right, check in. All right, so this is rapidly becoming the most stressful beer. What are we at? 167 in the whirlpool, recirc going, element on. Want to keep it at that temperature. I just set it for 30 minutes a few minutes ago. And this is what we got in here. There is a recirculation going of the hops. Smell is quite interesting. Don't really know what to expect. So the plan from here on out is I'm going to let this go for as is for the remainder of the time. Once it's up, I'm going to have to basically, I believe, I'm going to have to pull the chiller, pull out my little return, then pull the bag of the hops with the basket, try to squeeze it some, and then reinsert everything else. So I have a pile of risk of infection here. I can see coming up with, I'm going to be using gloves and everything else, and the chiller's coming out and the chiller's going back in after it's been, boiled and sanitized, so to speak. But it's still, everything is making me nervous. So I'll record back in. Probably I will check back in when everything is really chilled down really well. It's going to be a while, and let's see how everything goes. Okay, so my 30-minute whirlpool is just about up. I have a minute left, so I'll just probably start. I'm going to stop it here. When I finish this little recording, I will start my kind of plan. So I have my tray over here, clean it up, stoking in Star Stand. So the plan is, and let's get a look at this goodness in here. What a mess, holy shit. It's hard to see if you can see up close, but you can see little pieces of lupulin from the hops just circling on the surface. And actually, you can see some in my freaking sight glass as well. So this is feels a little mad. Feels a little bit like madness, but yeah, it looks crazy. I'm kind of excited about this one. I hope I don't screw it up. So anyway, plan. Element off, pump off. Close valve on my return up top here. I pull wort chiller, drop it in my Star Sand thing. Return goes in on top of it. Then I cinch up the bag, and I will pull the basket up just as I would if I'm draining my grains. My gloves over there, I will douse them in Star Sand again. I already did it once, so I'll use the left one. I'll try to squeeze out whatever the hell I can from the hops bag. And then I'll pull the basket, and I don't have anything to put the basket in. Oh, crud. I'll get some tinfoil, I guess, to just put the basket down on, because I don't want to put it down on the bare wood. And then return everything back into. Wort chill will go in, return will go in, start the water, chill it down, and then I'll put the wort into my nice fermonster, which is ready to be filled and waiting. So, wish me luck. Alright, so I got my chill. You can see I had a bunch of extra Star Sand in my fermenter that I just dumped over my wort chiller and my return. And everything seemed to be okay. I'm gonna actually, after dropping everything out and actually squeezing the bag, as you can see, I did a squeezing of the hops bag. Nice big hop tea bag right there. After doing all that, the interesting thing was, before I put everything back in my volumes on here, before I started actually squeezing the hops, my volumes were at like about 5 liters. And then I squeeze, and I hit right up to 5 liters, 5 gallons, right up to 6 gallons I got to. Putting my chiller and stuff back in has brought it up a little bit above 6. So that's interesting to keep note of in the future. And of course, the basket coming out and everything else. So yeah, I turned the element back on, and my pump. I am going to try to get this back up to 160 again to give it a little shot of sanitizing action. Yeah, my wort looks like very messy, but there's very few leaves in the wort itself. There's a few little hop leaves. You can see, if you look at what's floating on my tray over here, there's a few in there floating that was stuck to the wort chiller. Again, which is good, because I'm doing recirculation basically non-stop. I got to be very careful of those leaves going in and plugging up the pump. First time I dried my own hops, and I was like, oh, let's throw an ounce of hops in here. My pump sounded like it was dying when it was screeching like crazy, because I stupidly didn't put my leaf hops in a hop bag, and I was like, oh, they're just gonna float. No, they all got sucked in and stopped my pump, so that was a bit of a mess to clean up. So you live and learn. But yeah, that's it. I will, like I said, it's above 160 already. I'm going to, right now, I'm going to set my timer, give it 5 minutes. Again, not really, nothing should really harm the hop oils in here. Just, I'm kind of just being a little cautious about the any kind of contamination that could happen, because, you know, this is outside my parameters, and a lot of effort went into not even growing the hops, but plucking them. I spent a good 3 or 4 hours plucking hops to go in to there today, and I'm still left with a bunch to dry and a bunch more to pick. So I'm going to be working on this for a while here tonight. So that's about it. I'm going to set my timer, give it 5 minutes, and I'll probably check in once everything gets into the fermenter. I have plenty of headspace on that thing, so I'm going to put as much in as I can get in. So I'll be probably preparing myself to bottle a few of these as well, which doesn't sound too bad. I'm guessing gravity-wise, I haven't checked anything. I'm sure I'm above 1050. But I'll check back in once the fermenter's full and doing a starting gravity check with basically what's left in the hoses and everything else like I usually do. All right. Hello, everyone. Sorry for the lack of updates. Ooh, long day. Yeah, I can't remember the last thing I did. I think the last I was whirlpooling. So yeah, I did package everything. Final gravity update. I did, as you probably saw in some other videos, I didn't bother pulling out my pre-chiller and dealing with ice and all this other junk. So I just chilled down to about, I think it was 95 or 100 degrees. And I just put my fermenter right in the fridge, so I'm letting it cool down. It's about 11 o'clock at night here now, 11 p.m. Have a few things to do and then heading off to bed. So as you can see, based on that, I won't be pitching yeast tonight. I'll be pitching in the morning. I did oxygenate my wort already because I have to work in the morning. I did just take off a little bit of my amber, smoked amber, just for a sample, because I keg and I like to have the ability. This is going to be really interesting, a really interesting brew. Tasting it again, it's still obviously undercarbed, but the big character is kind of, it wasn't heavily, there's not a lot of smoke malt in there, but it is definitely present. You can taste it. So I'm pretty happy the way that this is kind of coming together as my first kind of attempt at using smoked malt and some other things. Even with that, lots of foam, lots of head retention, some lacing. It looks like it's going to be a good one. So if I look in the refrigerator, here's what we got. This is crazy interesting. So yes, wet hopped pale ale. Just look at all the yellow lupulin. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Sitting on top of the beer. It was kind of amazing. See a little bit of foam over there. That is from when I oxygenated it here a little while ago, I believe. I hope. You've probably heard the other earlier videos. I'm very worried about this being getting some sort of infection in there. That back line, which I just added, that is a 6-gallon line on my fermenter. So I did get about 5 3/4 gallons or so wort into my fermenter, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty pale beer. Right now, I did, as you can see, I modified a lid with some silicone grommets, and I did put a thermal well right down into the beer, because I think I've been griping on some other videos about how I would open the refrigerator like this for a little bit and the temperature would fluctuate. due to probably insulation problems, more or less. But yeah, just look at all the yellow on top. It was crazy. It's crazy. I was cleaning out my kettle, and I wiped up the water pretty well, and I wiped up the water, and I was just left with a crazy, see, no temperature change. I was just left with, I'm losing my train of thought here. Sorry. So I wiped up the last bit of wort out of my kettle when I was getting ready to clean it up. Wiped it down pretty good. And then when I added about 3 or 4 gallons, whatever it was, of PBW to recirculate and clean my BIAB system, my Brew bag system, it turned yellow from all the lupulin that came from the hops. It was crazy. This is a fun experience and experiment, if nothing else. It took a lot of work. It was a long brew day. I had to spend another 45 minutes or so after I cleaned everything up, breaking down the rest of my nugget hops. I ended up putting 17 ounces into the in the flame out edition. I used all the Cascade I had, which was 17 and 17, 2.2 pounds, 2 ounces. That's why I did it that way. And the 17 ounces at flame out, 17 ounces at whirlpool temperature. I did with my Cascades because I didn't want to dry any of it. I'm going to get a good 10 to 12 ounces of nugget dried, and then I still have another vine out there, which a big part of it had died, but I'm probably going to get another 5 or 6 ounces dried off that one too. So too much nugget. Probably should have did more nugget than Cascade, but I just wanted to use it up. So yeah, that's it. Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add. My starting gravity is 1051, which is a little disappointing. I think in part it's because of topping up a little bit of the water. 1051, I was hoping for something like, I think 1057 was my estimate. So it's kind of pretty well off of my methods, but considering, all the kind of straying from all the stuff that I was doing, and I took my pre-boil gravity was pretty low as well, and I changed the bag this time, so my recirculation rate was really off. Where did I put the bag? I washed it and it's up in my laundry room, but rinsed it out. But I don't know if I'm going to keep using the Brew bag system. It really hurt my recirculation rate. Here is the bag I did use for the hops. You can see why I did buy another bag, but I kind of spent a lot of money for that Brew in the bag, the Brew bag, I guess, the brewbag.com for that bag, and that one is very fine, whereas you can look at this bag, which I think I bought from More Beer, and it was much less expensive. It is not as fine, but it does a great job setting up the grain bed. So, and it's a different type of material, so I'm probably going to get another one of these because this one is ready to be retired. But these are fairly strong, and it's really easy to cinch them up and squeeze the bag quite a bit to get a lot of the sweet wort out. The other one was kind of it's a bag, but it's a weird material, and then the straps and everything else that help with the if you have a pulley system to pull it out, it kind of works pretty good. But for me, in my process, using my my steamer basket, which I really like, and using that to help squeeze the bag, it kind of became a hindrance. So I don't know. I guess I'll have to get another one of these and probably retire this one, because you can see these don't last forever. As you can see, there's holes. I know there's multiple holes on here, but it did a yeoman's job today, being boiled and having all the stuff in there and everything else. So anyway, I'll cut it there. Hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but and at some point I'm gonna have to get a proper camera so if someone wants to see my ugly face, they can see it. I'm not gonna be doing flipping this thing around right now. I do, I look pretty well beaten up here after today. So that's it. Watch along. I will be monitoring the fermentation schedule. The first video of the second part is going to be pitching the yeast in the morning. I know by then, I'm going to be well at temperature. I'm 12 off right now. Oh, I should say, I'm going to be repitching a little bit of slurry of the Pac-Man yeast I used for that smoked amber. And that's what I'm going to be pitching. I'm going to actually ferment this one at a little higher temperature at 65 to play with the yeast a little bit. It is super clean in that amber ale. There is very little yeast characteristics that I can detect. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit since this is kind of I think it's a pale ale. It's going to be heavily hopped. I'm not going to do any dry hops to kind of see what I'm playing with here. But it's going to be an interesting experience. So stay tuned.